winter morning. My colleague Pete and I were trying to stay inside the patrol car and out of trouble. We were halfway through a week of night shifts that had already included finding a corpse on a bus, choked on his own vomit while sleeping in the back seat, a long decomposed body in a bail inquiry, 5 inches of dead flies against the inside of the window, and a suicide. We had just dealt with a 2-month-old baby left alone with 2 bottles of milk, while his mother was being pimped out at Dalston's most violent clubs. The baby had been crying since 9 p.m. when the neighbors finally called at midnight, and we broke down the door. The mother and her pimp showed up at the station kicking and screaming, demanding the child back around 2 a.m. Pete and I spent a good amount of energy getting her into a cell. We went back out at the end of the witching hour 4 a.m., our captain promising us an easy one. We got a routine call someone heard a woman screaming in the street, with only a general location near a building not far from us. We got these calls multiple times a night. Most of the time, a search of the area revealed nothing. Sometimes it was just amorous foxes or loud TVs. We heard it a lot with gunshots, 2 people in high-rises watching action movies with headphones cranked up. Then the headphone wire gets pulled out by accident. Sudden eruption of gunshots heard calls. But you never know, and you can bet that at least once in your career it will be something. In Hackney, in the early 2000s, that could be a few times a year. We found the apartment block-shaped outdoor balconies, 3 staircases, 1 at each end and 1 at the junction. We climbed the first staircase 8 floors, didn't even see the usual homeless folks. It was too quiet. We checked every balcony, and then crossed to the middle. The plan was for each of us to take one of the remaining staircases down. But against our plans, the balcony had been sealed off with expensive-looking double-glazed partitions, so we had to go back down to ground level. That meant climbing the last staircase all over again, another 8 floors. We weren't even sure this was where the screams came from. There had only been 1 call, and everything was silent now. We were about to debate calling an ASNT area searched. Nothing traced or climbing again when we caught a delicate floral scent. It wouldn't have lasted long, so we started climbing. By the 4th floor, we saw blood dripping down the stairs. Calling for backup and moving up more tactically, we could no longer smell the perfume. But on the 5th floor, hidden behind an emergency panel, was the body of a young woman. She had been stabbed multiple times in the face and neck, and a large amount of blood was slowly seeping from her skull, dripping down to the floor below. As our colleagues secured the building, we found her purse and driver's license. Her address was on an upper floor. We knocked, and eventually a sleepy roommate answered, confirming the victim lived there. While detectives questioned the roommate, we searched the victim's room and found a bottle of the same perfume we had smelled downstairs. She lived alone but had a Russian boyfriend the roommate had a bad feeling about. One of the detectives had connections at Heathrow and expedited a passport check on the guy. The first flight to Moscow was leaving in about an hour. Back at the station, as we logged our evidence, the detectives told us the boyfriend had been caught trying to board that first flight to Russia. Blood-stained wet wipes were found in a dumpster near his car, along with a bloodied overcoat, had wiped himself down thoroughly before ditching it in the far end of a parking lot. Pete and I went to the coroner's office for the autopsy. The coroner said she had died almost instantly, at least 4 hours before we found her. We asked about the perfume. He said there was no trace of it on her, so who smelled like perfume? And who screamed less than 15 minutes before we found her? Everyone in the building passed their alibi and attitude checks. No one admitted to seeing her or screaming. The call had come from a cell phone at a nearby night bus stop. Whoever it was had only heard a scream. It's possible she had applied the perfume before leaving for work that morning, since the bottle was still beside her bed. But it shouldn't have been strong enough to linger 5 floors down. Maybe a homeless person found her, screamed, and ran. But they know that witnessing something like this guarantees them a few hot meals at the lost and found station in exchange for helping us. Pete and I avoided talking about it for a while. But a few days later, we were called to investigate an intruder. An old tenant said someone was crawling around her basement. Another ASNT job. We went down the stairs, Pete leading, baton extended, flashlight out. He nudged a black plastic bag of old clothes, and it started to topple against his shoulder. Pete spun and laid the most tremendous and prolonged beating on it. I got to use that great Venkman line. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, nice shooting, Tex," the old lady yelled. "What is it?" I answered, "A ghost." Pete looked like he was going to hit me. The old lady said, "If it's my Sydney, ask him if he gave the Wedgwood bowl to cousin Janice." We were absolutely useless for the rest of the day. Our captain sent us home. We were just laughing and getting chills. I had two particularly strange incidents, one of them during a service call several years ago, which I will describe today. Ha 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 ha. I tend to write novels in response, so I'll tell the other story another time. On a cloudy morning, my partner and I responded to a call about a possible burglary at a single-family home not far from our station. The elderly lady who lived there alone was terrified and threw the keys down to us from an upstairs window because she was too scared to walk through the house to open the front door. As she did this, we looked around and saw no signs of forced entry. The house had a front gate and everything appeared perfectly secure. We entered and did a quick walkthrough of the upstairs area to give a quick overview of the house's layout. Many homes in this city are in a townhouse-like setup on a city block, with a garage on the ground floor and the main living space upstairs. Many of these homes have areas on the lower level, separate from the garage, that are often used as in-law rental units. At this point in my story, we had only checked the upstairs living area and had not yet accessed the garage downstairs. The lady then told us that she had been sitting upstairs when suddenly someone started pounding on the interior door leading to the garage and shaking the doorknob. Loud bangs, and the doorknob rattled violently. This door was like any interior door leading to a basement. The garage could only be accessed through this door, the main automatic garage door outside, and a small exterior door on the side of the house. She was obviously scared and believed that someone had broken into the garage and was now trying to force their way into her home. She called 911, and my partner and I arrived. With this information, we requested another unit to start heading to our location, asked for radio traffic to be cleared momentarily while we searched the lower level, grabbed our weapons and flashlights, opened the door, and went down into the pitch-dark basement. What we found was a time capsule. The entire lower area was a testament to the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. A lot of dust, but otherwise perfectly preserved food and beer cans, advertisements, books, and magazines from decades past. The automatic garage door was no longer operational, and a large, pristine old Cadillac was parked inside, looking as if it had never been moved. We found a closed door at the back, which led to an old and clearly unused in-law unit, complete with vintage furniture and appliances. The place looked straight out of Mad Men. Dust covered everything again, but what really unnerved me was the bedroom in the in-law unit. It looked like someone had gotten up, stepped out to run some errands, and never returned. Clearly the bedroom of an elderly couple, with framed black and white photos on the walls, personal items, combs, brushes, a makeup kit, jewelry, and a handkerchief on the dresser, old suits, hats, dresses, and nightgowns hanging in the closet. We searched every possible place for a hidden person and found nothing. All the doors and windows were locked and secure, no footprints, no disturbed dust, nothing. I've responded to many burglaries and home invasions, and I've never seen a place without a single sign of an intruder. I don't know what caused it, but while we were in that bedroom, every hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I searched some of the same spots again because I knew someone was watching me. There was no one there. At this point, we canceled the additional responding unit and reopened radio traffic. As we were leaving, we ran into the homeowner's friend. It turned out she had also called him a firefighter from a neighboring city, and he had arrived while we were still searching. He confirmed that this wasn't the first time it had happened and that he had witnessed it himself. He wouldn't speculate on what it might be, no matter how much I pressed him. We never found out who used to live downstairs. Could someone have broken in and left no trace of their presence? Sure, but in my experience, I don't see how. Could the homeowner have been suffering from dementia? Again, sure, but she was sharp as a tack and didn't seem to have any signs of an age-related mental condition. Her friend's confirmation really ruled that theory out for me. Whatever happened, she was scared enough that I believed she truly experienced something. As my usually quiet partner and I walked back to the car, he simply said, "I don't know, man. Do you believe in ghosts?" That was basically the end of that conversation, but that incident still sticks with me. Did I encounter a haunting that morning? Or the most impressive magician burglar who stole nothing the world has ever seen? Who knows, but it was definitely eerie. My father, now retired, was an officer in the Bihar police. He has many stories, but this one is particularly fascinating. I still remember it vividly. He was assigned to a district along the Bengal border. There is a highway that connects the eastern part of India and extends into Bangladesh. One winter, he started receiving numerous complaints about trucks going off the road more frequently. There were also a few accidents. He initially dismissed the reports, assuming they were caused by fog and the condition of the road. Since no fatalities had occurred, no one was particularly concerned. However, even in the summer, he continued receiving complaints about frequent accidents. This piqued his curiosity. At that time, there were very few computer operators available, but he asked them to collect accident data from previous years to determine if there was a seasonal pattern. Unfortunately, there was no significant difference in accident numbers between seasons. Except for one detail, all the accidents had occurred within the same 100-meter stretch of highway, on a straight section of the road. Interestingly, about 300-400 meters before this spot, there was a curve. If trucks lost control, skidded, or went off the road, it always happened at this location. Another strange thing was that no incidents involving cars, jeeps, or other smaller vehicles had been reported. Additionally, all the accidents occurred between 200 a.m. and 300 a.m. This made no sense, so my father decided to set up an observation post at the reported location for a few days. A temporary police checkpoint was established a little before the curve to ensure their safety. By law, a truck driver who goes off the road in an undesignated area can be fined or even arrested. On the very first day, he got lucky. Another truck went off the road at the exact same spot. When his subordinates brought in the driver for questioning, they found that he was drunk and incoherent. He claimed he didn't remember anything and might have dozed off. This was the expected explanation from a law enforcement perspective. However, over the next 15 days, there were more than 20 similar incidents, and almost every driver reported the same thing. Suddenly, they saw 56 teenage girls on bicycles appear right in front of the truck. To avoid hitting them, the drivers slammed the brakes and swerved, causing them to lose control. At first, my father didn't believe their story, assuming they were just making excuses to avoid fines. But when almost every driver gave the same account, he had no choice but to take it seriously. Later, he investigated old case records from the area. Shockingly, he discovered that many years ago, at the exact location where the accidents were occurring, a tragic incident had taken place. A speeding truck had run over a group of schoolgirls who were riding bicycles. I, along with several other people I worked with, had inexplicable experiences. One, in particular, stayed in my mind. One afternoon, an elderly couple in a nicer neighborhood died in a murder-suicide. The husband had terminal cancer, and the wife was suffering from severe dementia. He laid her down on a plastic sheet in the living room, shot her, and then turned the gun on himself. He left a note, but it was somewhat incoherent and hard to understand. Several months and a cleanup later, a younger couple bought the house at a really low price. It had been on the market for about 9 months, so they made a low offer and got the house. About 3 weeks later, the wife called in the middle of the night, saying someone was upstairs in the house. We all showed up, cleared the house, and found nothing. Both parents and both children told the same story. They saw a dark figure step out of the hallway and enter a bedroom. The same thing happened every night for the rest of the week. It got to the point where the entire family refused to go upstairs, and the lights remained on 247. Eventually, the family got tired of living in fear, so they went to stay with relatives for a while. They asked us to keep an eye on their house, which, to be honest, we were already doing, because who wouldn't want to see a ghost, right? They gave us access to their home and permission to enter if needed. Late one night, I was driving by and decided to stop and check things out. That's when I saw someone pass by an upstairs window, and then the light in that room turned off. I called my partner, and we entered the house. The feeling inside was horrible. You just knew something was off. The air felt heavy, depressing, kind of like the feeling you get at a funeral home, but 10 times worse. We searched downstairs and ensured no one could enter or exit. We weren't exactly thrilled about going upstairs, but it was our job, so we went up. Let me tell you, the upstairs felt disgusting and oppressive. Imagine being in a swimming pool and trying to run or move quickly through the water, but it's so restrictive that you can't. That's the best way I can describe the feeling. Suddenly, the same bedroom light I had seen turn off earlier turned back on. Creepy. We entered the room and nothing. Not a single person in the entire house. This was years before body cameras became a thing, so many of us made it a habit to carry pocket-sized digital recorders as a form of protection and potential evidence if needed. When we reviewed our recording, we could hear a conversation that neither my partner nor I had. Our voices were easily distinguishable, and the other voice definitely wasn't ours. It wasn't loud enough to make out what was being said, but it was clearly there. It was like someone was in another room talking, and you could pick up the conversation, but you couldn't quite understand the words. Neither of us heard the conversation while we were there in person. Listening to it later made our hair stand on end and sent chills down our spines. To this day, this experience stands out vividly in my mind, even though it happened early in my career.